Now, after having understood the story well, let's understand the character of Lencho. Lencho is a simple-minded farmer with a strong faith in God. He's compared to an ox. Lencho is an ox of a man. That tells us how hardworking he is and how strong he is. He's very honest and hardworking. He is pictured at the beginning of the story staring at the sky, convinced that it will rain. Although it begins to rain, Lencho's happiness is short-lived, for it changes into a hailstorm which eventually destroys his cornfield. In his most desperate moment, he turns to God and writes him a letter. He asks God to send him 100 pesos so that he can sow his field again. At the post office, Lencho's naive action is a cause for amusement. All of them laugh at the expense of this letter. But the postmaster takes pity on him and collects a donation which amounts to 70 pesos. He also writes God's reply to Lencho himself. Lencho's belief in God is so strong and natural that when he receives the letter, he is not at all surprised. However, instead of being thankful, his reaction is the opposite. Upon counting the money and finding that the fund is 70 pesos only, he writes another letter to God, angrily accusing the post office employees of stealing the rest of the money. The ending of the story makes Lencho sound like an ungrateful person, an unthankful person, though his reaction is further proof of his conviction in his beliefs. He does not question whether a letter can be sent by God. On the other hand, he trusts that God would surely have sent him the full amount he needed. Now let's sum up Lencho's character once again. He's a simpleton, leading a very simple life, a very honest, hardworking person who strongly believed in God. He was instructed that God sees everything and that He sees even what is deep in one's conscience. With that belief in mind, he writes a letter to God. And he takes God's help for granted. He expects a response from God, and when he gets the response, he is not at all surprised. That once again tells us how strong his belief in God is. Then he counts the money and finds it lesser, and he's very angry. This tells us about his ungratefulness as well as his arrogance. He expects God to send him the rest of the money, which speaks of his arrogance. It also speaks of his ignorance. How could someone expect God to be responding to his letter? So he's very, very innocent, naive, and a simpleton, expecting God to be writing letters to him and responding to him when he's in need of help. This shows his innocence. But then, once again, it tells us how strong his faith in God is. When it comes to people, when he was in trouble, he didn't look to other people for help. He didn't try to approach any other person for help. right away he corresponded with God. Later on also, when the post office employees helped him out, he never even tried to think that people should have helped him out. He only felt that God helped him. On top of that, he also accused the post office employees of stealing the money sent by God to him. So this tells us that he has a lot of faith in God, no doubt, blind faith in God, but then absolutely no faith in fellow human beings. So that's about the character analysis of the character of Lencho.